Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to give you that shortcut to being genuinely well-informed on the big ideas.
That's right.
And today, we're doing something a bit different. We're not just looking at, successful people. We're actually trying to tear down the blueprints, the architecture of what gives certain people and messages, well, enduring influence.
Yeah, that lasting power.
Yeah.
Like a manifesto.
Exactly. Going beyond just talent or, being charismatic for a moment, we want to find those fundamental things, the repeatable bits that let ideas really shift the culture.
And that's the mission today. We've gathered a really wide range of sources. It's quite the stack.
Spanning millennia, right?
Absolutely. From ancient Greek thinkers on rhetoric, Roman Stoics talking resilience, all the way up to, modern psychology on things like shame, and of course, contemporary success gurus focusing on personal mastery.
Wow. So a real mix.
Yeah, and the aim isn't just to summarize book reports. It's to pull out the universal nuggets, the synthesized knowledge about, purpose, how we communicate, and that disciplined action that underpins it all.
So we're blending philosophy, psychology, practical frameworks, trying to figure out what actually creates an authentic legacy that lasts.
Precisely.
This deep dive, then, is about understanding the structure, the actual mechanics of powerful, purposeful living and communication, how it's built, really.
Brick by brick, as you said. And hopefully it gives you a shortcut to grasping the mechanism of why some messages just connect, why they resonate across generations, whether they started in business, politics, ministry, wherever.
Okay, sounds good. Let's get into it.
Yeah.
So where do we start with building this kind of influence? It feels like it has to begin internally, right, at the core.
Absolutely. That's where all our sources point. Many people chase external markers, wealth, fame, status.
The usual suspects.
Yeah, but true, lasting success. It starts with defining your purpose, your why.
Ah, the why. That's become a popular idea, hasn't it?
It has, and for good reason. Frameworks like Senex really highlight this. It's surprising, actually, how few people, or even companies, can clearly state their real why.
What do you mean by real why?
Well, their core purpose, the cause, the belief that drives them, not just what they do like we sell software or the result, we make money. Those aren't the why.
Okay, so making money is just an outcome.
Exactly. It's necessary, sure, for a business to survive, but it's not the motivator that builds deep loyalty or inspires people long term.
So the crucial question then is,
why should anyone care? Really care about what you do beyond just the transaction. If you can't answer that, if that core belief isn't driving things, any influence you gain is likely to be pretty superficial, temporary.
And that links back to character, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If the external purpose is shaky, the internal structure probably is too.
Precisely. Sources like Covey hammer this home. They talk about the character ethic versus the personality ethic. Quick fixes, surface techniques, they just don't cut it for long-term influence.
So it's about who you are, fundamentally.
Yes. It's the essential starting point. Real self-respect, the kind you need to lead effectively, comes from what Covey calls dominion over self.
Dominion over self sounds intense.
It is. It means serious self-mastery, self-discipline, often in the small things nobody else sees. This internal work, this focus on your own character, that's the private victory.
And that has to come first.
Absolutely. No exceptions. It must precede any effective public victory. Think about it. Managing external relationships, influencing others, that takes huge energy. If you haven't secured yourself internally first, you're just going to be draining energy from others instead of contributing. You'll be needy.
Okay, that makes sense. So secure the inner core first. And that internal security seems tied to this idea of being principle-centered. How does that work? We're always facing changing circumstances, right? Things go up, things go down.
Right, and that's exactly why the principle center is so powerful. It offers a stable anchor in that storm. See, if your life is centered on, say, your job or money or even a relationship, what happens when those things change, which they inevitably do?
Your whole world gets rocked.
Exactly. Your emotional stability goes out the window. If your center is money, a market crash devastates you. If it's your spouse, relationship troubles or a breakup can feel like the end of the world. But principles, correct principles, things like fairness, integrity, honesty, human dignity, they don't change. They're like natural laws, immutable.
So relying on those external shifting centers leads to what? What does that look like in practice?
It leads to a life of, Constant emotional roller coasting, as Covey puts it. You waste so much psychic energy just reacting, feeling anxious, trying to course correct based on external validation or circumstances.
Feels exhausting.
It is, but centering on principles gives you a solid, secure foundation. It provides consistent direction for your life, real wisdom for decisions, and a steady source of personal power because you know your internal compass is fixed even when the outside world is chaotic.
Stability through unchanging truths.
Okay.
And it's fascinating how this sort of high-level philosophical idea connects to something really practical, almost folksy, like Russell Conwell's Echoes of Diamonds.
Yes. Conwell's lecture is a classic for a reason. He delivered it thousands of times, apparently. It's this brilliant blend of principle and, well, pragmatic opportunity seeking.
What's the core message?
Stop looking so far away for your big break. He argues that the wealth, the opportunity, the acres of diamonds you're searching for are often right there, right under your nose, within the sound of your voice even. Untapped potential in your immediate community or environment.
We do tend to think the grass is greener somewhere else, don't we? That the big idea has to be exotic or complicated.
We do. Conwell's basically saying, pay attention. Look at the unmet needs of the people around you, your neighbors, your community. People spend fortunes traveling, chasing complex schemes, when massive opportunities are sitting right there, just waiting for someone to notice a simple, immediate need and fill it. It's about observation and leveraging what's close.
But he wasn't just saying go make money. He rooted it in something deeper, right?
Yeah.
A moral framework.
Absolutely. That's key to its enduring appeal. He explicitly argued that the foundation of godliness and the foundation of business success are, or should be, the same thing.
How did he illustrate that?
He used this simple story about running his father's country store. He said if he'd run it on a truly Christian plan, which for him meant serving others with principled kindness and attention, he would have recognized a real community need.
What was the need?
Something simple. He mentioned that several men came in asking for a jackknife, but he didn't have one. He said if he'd been truly principled in his service, he'd have made sure to stock that jackknife for the third man who asked. Fulfilling that small kindness, meeting that genuine need, wasn't just good ethics, it was good business. It would have built loyalty and brought a deserved reward.
That flips the script a bit. It makes ethical service almost a prerequisite for success, suggesting maybe failure comes from not being principled enough in serving needs.
Exactly. It elevates the ethical execution of business. It implies that pursuing wealth ethically, by meeting genuine needs, isn't just okay, it might even be a kind of duty.
And this connects to actually starting something, doesn't it? Not just having the idea.
Yes, Conwell was huge on that.
Yeah.
Dream big, absolutely envision that future grand success. But crucially, be ready to begin at once, right now, no matter how small or insignificant that start seems.
He practiced what he preached there, didn't he, with the hospital?
He did. The story of Samaritan Hospital, which became Temple University Hospital, is amazing. He didn't wait for some massive donation. It started, what, 1891? Just 2 rented rooms, 1 nurse, 1 patient. Tiny.
Wow.
But that small, immediate, principle-driven action eventually grew into this huge institution. The lesson is clear. Delaying, waiting for perfect conditions, waiting for the big break. That often means you never start at all. Act on your principles now.
Okay, so we've got the solid inner core, purpose, principles, starting small but starting now. But influence happens out there with people. So the next step has to be about connection, right?
Authenticity.
Exactly. And you can't really have authentic connection without vulnerability. That seems to be a key thread in so many of these sources. But vulnerability is, well, it's scary. Why is it so hard for us? What do the sources say about that resistance?
A lot of it comes down to psychic energy, believe it or not. Think about how much mental effort goes into self-preoccupation. We're constantly scanning. How am I coming across? Am I safe? Did I mess up?
The internal monologue of doom.
Pretty much. We feel threatened, our ego feels threatened, and we have to expend energy trying to restore order, trying to maintain this image of control or perfection. From that perspective, being genuinely vulnerable feels incredibly risky, like lowering your shields in battle.
And shame plays a huge role in keeping those shields up, right? But it doesn't hit everyone the same way.
No, it doesn't. Brene Brown's work is crucial here. She points out that shame itself, the fear of disconnection, of not being worthy, is universal. We all feel it. But the triggers, the messages that fuel shame, are often very gendered. They're cultural scripts we internalize.
What are those typical scripts?
For men, it often revolves around performance, strength, and provision. Don't be weak, provide, climb the ladder, win. Any perceived failure in those areas, any sign of weakness or needing help can trigger intense shame. The core fear might be, am I strong enough? Am I successful enough?
And for women,
It's often a minefield of contradictory expectations. Be nice, be agreeable, be thin, be pretty, but also be incredibly competent, a perfect mother, a successful professional. But crucially, don't be too powerful or assertive. Don't take up too much space. Step outside those lines, and shame is waiting. It's incredibly difficult to navigate.
So influencing others requires dismantling those internal shame scripts first.
You have to.
Yeah.
You have to recognize them to break free. But then there's another trap, confusing real vulnerability with something else.
You mean like oversharing? We see a lot of that, especially online.
Exactly. And it's a vital distinction. Oversharing often looks like vulnerability, but it's actually the opposite. It's often armor. It's using excessive boundaryless disclosure almost as a weapon or a shield.
How is an armor?
It can be a way to preemptively push people away, or to control the narrative by dumping overwhelming emotion onto someone without checking if they have the capacity or willingness to receive it. It often creates discomfort and disconnection, not connection.
And that creates a negative feedback loop.
Totally. The person oversharing floods the listener. The listener understandably pulls back because it's uncomfortable or inappropriate, and the oversharer thinks, see, vulnerability doesn't work, nobody can handle me, I really am unworthy. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
So true vulnerability is different. It's mutual. It has boundaries.
Yes, it's about sharing appropriately with people who have earned the right to hear your story, and in a way that fosters connection, not just pushes people away. It's risky, yes, but the intent is connection, not just emotional dumping.
Okay. So to get to that place of authentic vulnerability, there usually needs to be some kind of personal shift, right? A transformation.
Definitely. Influence often flows from people who've gone through something significant internally. We see this in frameworks focused on transformation, like Tony Robbins' work. He talks a lot about how our behavior stems from our emotional states.
And we can control those states.
We can influence them, absolutely, by consciously directing our mental focus. Are you focusing on what you fear, on past failures, or are you focusing relentlessly on the outcomes you want to create? That shift in focus can dramatically change your emotional state and therefore your actions and results. It requires a deep internal commitment.
And maybe one of the most striking examples of that kind of radical change is Malcolm X. His time in prison wasn't just about reading books.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It was a profound transformation. The story about his intense reading, often by the dim light from the hallway, it's incredible. And the fact that it literally corrected his astigmatism, his physical vision, improved alongside his intellectual and spiritual vision, that's such a powerful symbol.
A symbol of clarity.
Exactly. And think about what he prioritized immediately upon release. 3 things.
Right. I remember reading this. It was eyeglasses, a suitcase, and a wristwatch.
That's it. Better eyeglasses for clearer vision, literally and metaphorically. A suitcase symbolizing his readiness for travel, for a global stage, for the journey ahead. And a wristwatch symbolizing a new commitment to time, to structure, to living consciously within time.
Those weren't just objects. They were declarations of intent, physical manifestations of his transformed principles.
Absolutely. He was embodying the outcome he intended long before it fully materialized. He was living as if.
That really connects to the Stoic idea you mentioned earlier, doesn't it? About principles permeating the soul.
It really does. Seneca wrote that the wise person overcomes fortune, overcomes external circumstances through their virtue. But, and this is key, those principles can't just be a thin coat of paint. They have to thoroughly permeate the soul.
Like dye soaking into wool.
That's Seneca's analogy. It needs time, consistent application, steeping, until the color is deep and fixed, not just sitting on the surface. Malcolm X's years of disciplined study and reflection in prison, that was the steeping process. It made the principles indelible.
Okay, so internal transformation, fixed principles. This prepares you for the next crucial step in connecting with others. Truly listening.
Yes, empathic listening. It's the bedrock of building trust and strong relationships, what Covey calls the emotional bank account.
Making deposits before you can make withdrawals.
Exactly. And the fundamental rule is, seek first to understand, then to be understood. You have to diagnose before you prescribe. You have to genuinely try to see the world from the other person's perspective before you jump in with your own solutions or arguments.
Why is that so hard? Why do we skip the diagnosis so often?
Because it feels risky. Truly listening, empathically listening, means you have to open yourself up. You have to be willing to be influenced by the other person's perspective. You risk having your own views challenged, maybe even changed.
That's a paradox, isn't it? To influence others, you first have to be willing to be influenced.
It's a profound paradox, but it's absolutely essential. That vulnerability, that willingness to genuinely understand, is what builds the trust, the relational capital, the emotional bank account, strong enough to handle disagreements, to collaborate electively, to achieve real public victory. If you skip it, you're not leading, you're just dictating or manipulating.
Okay, so we have the solid core of purpose and principle. We have the connection built on authentic vulnerability and empathy. Now, how do you actually project that influence outward? We're talking about communication, rhetoric, storytelling.
Right, the delivery mechanism. But the moment we talk about rhetoric, our sources immediately wave a big ethical caution flag.
Going back centuries, right?
Way back. Plato, in his dialogue Gorgias, was deeply critical of rhetoric used purely for manipulation. He had a specific term for it, kolokia. It means pandering or flattery.
Pandering. How did he define that in terms of rhetoric?
He saw it as oratory designed simply to please the crowd, to tell people what they want to hear, even if it's not good for them or the state. It's like a chef who serves only sugary treats because they taste good, ignoring health. The panderer sacrifices the public good for personal gain or popularity.
So if that's the unethical version, the pandering, what's the goal of the true leader, the ethical influencer, according to Plato?
The true leader, the true politician, in the best sense of the word, must always aim for the genuine good of the citizens. Their persuasion must flow from knowledge of what is right and just, not just clever tricks.
And Plato made a really interesting point about tyrants and manipulators, didn't he? About what they want.
Yes, it's a powerful distinction. He argued that tyrants and unethical politicians don't actually do what they truly want. They only do what they decide seems best at the moment, based on their ignorance of the real good. If they actually knew what was truly beneficial and just, Plato believed, they would act differently. So, for lasting, positive influence, that ethical core, that knowledge of the good, is absolutely non-negotiable. Skill without ethics is just dangerous manipulation.
Okay, so ethics first. Now, assuming the intent is good, how do you craft a message that actually connects emotionally, but in a principled way? Aristotle had thoughts on this.
He did. He analyzed how emotional appeals work, and he argued that evoking certain emotions is actually a sign of good character in both the speaker and the audience. It reflects a healthy moral compass.
Like pity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Aristotle defined pity not just as feeling sorry for someone, but specifically as feeling pain at undeserved adversity. If you see someone suffering unjustly and you don't feel pity, something's wrong with your moral framework. Evoking appropriate pity is part of ethical persuasion.
And the flip side of that was indignation.
Righteous indignation, yes. Not just being angry, but specifically feeling pain at undeserved prosperity. When you see someone flourishing through corrupt means or benefiting unfairly while others suffer, that feeling of injustice, that indignation, is also considered a mark of good character. It shows you recognize and care about fairness. Principled speakers can tap into these morally grounded emotions.
So you've got the ethical intent, the right emotional resonance. What about the style? How do you make it land? Does it need to be fancy?
Quite the opposite, according to Aristotle. He strongly advised that rhetorical style should be, above all, conversational. Avoid jargon, avoid overly academic or complex language, avoid showing off with flowery poetic words that distance you from the audience.
Keep it simple. Cut through the noise.
Precisely. Complexity can be a shield, a way to obscure or impress rather than connect. Enduring influence often comes from radical simplicity and clarity. Make it sound like a real person talking.
And for a masterclass in that kind of powerful simplicity, we have to look at someone like Sojourner Truth.
Absolutely perfect example. Her genius was taking huge, complex, philosophical or social arguments and distilling them into incredibly simple, direct, conversational language. It's pure Aristotle in practice.
The famous example is about intellect, right? Comparing men and women.
Yes. Instead of getting tangled in abstract debates about nature or divine rights, she just used that unforgettable analogy. Suppose a man's mind holds a quart, and a woman's don't hold but a pint. If her pint is full, it's as good as his quart.
Boom. It's just undeniable. It concedes a potential difference in size, but completely demolishes any argument about difference in value or completeness.
It's rhetorically brilliant, simple, relatable, morally charged. But for that kind of delivery to work, especially when it feels so natural, there's often a hidden layer of skill involved.
Ah, the concealed artifice you mentioned, Quintilian, right?
Yes, the Roman rhetorician Quintilian insisted on this. It's not about being fake or deceptive. It's about mastering your craft so thoroughly that the effort, the technique, becomes invisible.
Why is that so important?
Because if the audience sees the strings, if they suspect you're just running through techniques or manipulating them with fancy tricks, trust evaporates instantly. The message gets tainted.
So you have to make it look easy, effortless.
You have to give the impression of speaking sincerely, thoughtfully, naturally, without elaborate design. The words need to feel like they're flowing directly from your core principles, even if you spent hours crafting them. The art lies in hiding the art.
And that preparation, the hidden work that makes the delivery seem natural, starts way before you speak.
Quintilian laid out a whole process. Before you even think about what to say first, you have to immerse yourself in the context. Who is your audience? What's the time, the place, the specific circumstances? What's the prevailing mood or opinion? What biases might the listeners have?
You need to read the room, basically, but on a really deep level.
Exactly. You saturate yourself in the environment. And Quintilian believed that only after that deep analysis, nature herself will suggest the right starting point, the right approach. That deep contextual understanding is the concealed artifice. It allows for genuine connection.
Okay, so that's for building trust, persuading gently. But sometimes influence requires something more forceful, especially when facing blatant injustice.
Yeah, definitely. Not all rhetoric is about subtle persuasion. Sometimes it has to be about confrontation. Frederick Douglass is the towering example here.
Dealing with slavery in America.
Yes. He reached a point where he argued forcefully that concerning the injustice of slavery, there was fundamentally nothing to be argued. The basic immorality was self-evident.
How did he make that case? That it didn't need arguing?
He pointed to the hypocrisy inherent in the laws themselves. For instance, the fact that Southern laws punished enslaved black people for dozens more crimes than white people proved that the law itself recognized their personhood, their agency, their moral responsibility. You don't make laws for animals or property.
So the slaveholders' own laws betrayed their arguments.
Precisely. So Douglass concluded, if the fundamental injustice is already implicitly conceded, then the time for gentle persuasion and logical debate is over. The rhetorical strategy has to shift.
Shift to what?
To rebuke, to moral denunciation. He felt that continuing to argue the basic humanity of enslaved people was actually validating a morally bankrupt debate. His role, he decided, was to expose the flagrant inconsistency, the monstrous hypocrisy of a nation claiming liberty in Christianity while perpetuating brutal bondage. It was about forcing a moral reckoning, not winning a debate club point.
Okay, so we've covered the principled core, the vulnerable connection, the skillful rhetoric. But life happens. Obstacles arise. Setbacks occur. How does enduring influence deal with adversity? Resilience must be the final piece.
It absolutely is. And here we loop back powerfully to Stoicism, particularly the idea popularized now as the obstacle is the way.
What's the core of that?
It starts with radical acceptance. Understanding what you can control primarily, your own perceptions, judgments, and actions, and what you cannot control, basically everything external. Most of our suffering comes from fighting reality, from wishing things were different than they are.
So accept what you can't change, but the obstacle itself becomes useful.
Exactly. Constraints aren't just things to endure. They are forces that shape us, that push us to develop strengths we might otherwise neglect. Think about it. Major breakthroughs often happen because of a limitation, not despite it.
Like that definition of genius you mentioned.
Right, that idea of a mind of large general powers accidentally determined in some particular direction. The accident, the constraint, the obstacle, that's what focuses the power and forces the development of specific skills. It carves the channel for the river.
So the Stoic approach to any hardship boils down to
3 simple but incredibly demanding steps. See things clearly for what they truly are, without adding emotional drama. Act virtuously. Do what you can do within your control. And finally, endure and bear what you must, what is outside your control, with courage and resilience. Perception, action, will.
that focus on clear perception. It highlights how we often get used to a low level of discomfort, doesn't it? We tolerate chronic issues.
That's a great point, linking back to Covey's distinction between chronic and acute pain. We can live for years with the chronic ache of a life lacking clear vision or purpose. We're vaguely unhappy, maybe, but we learn to live with it, numb it, ignore it.
But acute pain is different.
Totally different. A sudden crisis, relationship breakdown, job loss, health scare that's intense. It demands attention, forces action. The truly influential person, perhaps, is the one who learns to recognize and address the chronic pain with the same urgency, using their principles as the guide, rather than waiting for an external crisis to force their hand.
They generate their own acute awareness through principle-centered living.
You could say that. They don't wait for the fire alarm. They're checking the smoke detectors regularly. And this whole theme of adversity and clarity, it bumps up against some cultural myths about what it means to grow up or be validated.
Kurt Vonnegut wrote about this, right? This sort of calamity myth.
Yeah, he called it a destructive, not to say suicidal myth, perpetuated by storytellers. The idea that you're not really an adult, not really tested or proven until you've survived some big, famous, external disaster, the Great Depression, World War II, maybe a huge corporate collapse today.
Why is that destructive?
Because it makes maturity contingent on external events you don't control. You end up waiting for the defining trauma instead of defining yourself through intentional, principled action now. It outsources your sense of self-worth to luck and history.
So what's the alternative? If waiting for the big storm isn't the answer, how do you cultivate resilience in the meantime?
Julia Cameron's work on creative recovery offers a beautiful contrast. She talks about the importance of going through the motions during dry spells, during times of emotional drought or lack of inspiration.
Just showing up even when you don't feel it.
Exactly. When you feel empty, when the why feels distant, when things are tough, you still commit to the practice. She uses that incredible, poignant, almost heartbreaking example. Making breakfast for a lover you know is leaving you anyway.
Wow, that's powerful. It's about the principle of the action, not the immediate emotional payoff.
It's commitment to the structure, the kindness, the principle of showing up, even when the feeling is gone, even when the outcome looks bleak. That discipline, that commitment to action, regardless of mood or immediate result, is what builds deep resilience. It stops you from collapsing when hardship inevitably hits.
So putting this all together, the message isn't just know these things, it's a call to act now, isn't it? Don't wait.
Absolutely. Anna Quindlen gave this incredibly direct commencement speech, warning graduates not to just fall into the status quo, not to trade their dreams or happiness for some deferred, maybe never arriving gratification.
What was her warning about the safe path?
She said the safe is the enemy of the satisfying, that playing it safe, following the predictable paths just because it seems secure, often leads to regret. And frankly, she argued, the status quo has failed for many people anyway. It doesn't guarantee happiness or purpose. So why sacrifice your potential for it?
Which leads us back to the idea that knowledge alone isn't enough.
It's the final crucial piece from so many success and resilience frameworks. Knowledge is only potential power. It's inert. It doesn't do anything until you apply it, until you take action.
All the understanding of purpose, vulnerability, rhetoric, it means nothing without execution.
Nothing. Enduring influence belongs to those who bridge the gap between knowing and doing. You have to act on your principles. You have to practice vulnerability. You have to start building, even if it's just those 2 rented rooms for your hospital.
Yeah.
Today, #tag outro.
Wow, that was quite a journey through the architecture of influence, a real deep dive.
It covered a lot of ground.
So if we synthesize everything we've pulled apart today, what's the blueprint look like? It seems to rest on, what, 3 main pillars?
I think that's a good way to put it. First, definitely that unwavering foundation of principle. Knowing your why, securing that private victory through self-mastery. That's the bedrock.
Okay, foundation first, then.
Second, it has to be expressed through authentic, vulnerable narrative. That's how you build trust, how you truly connect with people on a human level, empathy, seeking to understand. It flows from that authenticity.
Got it. Principle, authentic connection, and the third.
And third, that message, that narrative, needs to be amplified effectively. That's the intentional, concealed rhetorical artifice. Making your message clear, simple, conversational, ethically grounded so it actually lands and has impact. It's marrying the highest intent with the highest skill.
Principle, authenticity, skillful delivery, all integrated.
Driven by that secure inner core. You need all 3 working together.
Okay, so before we finish, we talked about stoicism, dealing with hardship, and Seneca's point that even the wise, principled person still feels pain, still trembles. Vulnerability isn't optional, it's part of being real.
Right. Virtue doesn't make you numb.
So, if influence requires this ongoing authenticity and vulnerability, what's the biggest ongoing threat to maintaining it? Once you've built that foundation, how do you protect it day to day?
That's a great final question. I think the biggest threat is probably slow erosion. Burnout, drift, complacency, the gradual decay of that private victory we talked about. Life just sort of wears you down if you're not vigilant.
So constant maintenance is required.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Which is why that idea of daily self-renewal is so critical. Covey, for instance, advocates strongly For the daily private victory, dedicating time, maybe an hour a day, specifically to renewing the physical, spiritual, and mental dimensions of your life. Exercise, reflection, learning, meditation, whatever works for you.
It's like reinforcing the foundation every single day.
Exactly. It's that small, consistent action totally within your control that shields you from the chaos outside. It keeps your principles from just being paint on the surface. It's that daily dye bath Seneca talked about, keeping the color fixed deep in the wool. That's how you protect the core.
So the challenge for you listening right now is to take that advice seriously. Can you identify, say, 3 core unchanging principles for yourself, the non-negotiables you want to build on? And maybe, just maybe, can you commit to that hour or even just 15 minutes of daily renewal to make sure those principles stay fixed, truly permeate your life, and aren't just lice ideas? That might be the real start of building your own enduring influence.